What if there were a medicine that could heal almost anything?
That would be great.
But they didn't want you to know about it.
Sorry, who's they?
Some people are following me, and I brought my tortoise.
From executive producers Mike Judge and Greg Daniels and co-creators Joe Bennett and Steve Healy comes an animated comedy thriller about what it takes to change the world. Common Side Effects. Series premieres with back-to-back episodes. February 2nd at 11:30 p.m. on Adult Swim. Next day on Max.
Oh my God, you're gonna love it.
Hey folks, welcome to the AI Chicks, where we're providing you cool conversations about AI for all. With each episode bringing you a different topic on how AI impacts your daily life. I'm your host, Aisha, always coming in hot with that fun, unique perspective on tech. And I got my girl here.
Hi, guys. I'm Lana Howe, bringing you the curls, the charisma, and that entrepreneurial energy. Today, we're going to be getting into AI and digital communication.
And we have a very unique, exciting guest joining us, tech entrepreneur Jacob Catalano.
Let's get into it. Hi, Jacob. Welcome to the AI Chicks.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So we thought we'd have you start off by just introducing yourself and giving us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, so I'm Jacob Catalano, and I have a company right now where we're really just trying to build a great consumer-facing AI company. And that means we've built a lot of things so far. We're a little over a year we've been at it. It's me and two other of my co-founders. And I think we've built maybe 6 or 7 different apps so far. And as soon as we find something that's not really resonating the way I was hoping it would, I'm just like, we got to move on to the next. And it is a grueling process, and it's definitely it's wearing on me and the team at times. But I think you got to fail fast, and we are certainly good at failing and failing quickly. So yeah, we're just building a whole bunch of different stuff, and we're really excited about what we're working on right now.
If people look you up, they'll see Flock as one of your apps and one of your AI platforms that you've built. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Flock is a really interesting one. OpenAI released what they're calling their real-time API, the voice communication stuff where it's seamless conversations and the AI just talks back to you and it's incredible. And it's when they demoed that I was just like, okay, this voice stuff is going to be really, really, really interesting. And then we started playing around with different voice AI products. So we actually ended up building 3 products that were in the voice space. The first one we started building in, I guess, June. That was a product called MiniPod, more of like this therapeutic product where you would talk to AI and you just have this like conversation with it. If you're driving to work and instead of maybe listening to a podcast, you're like talking to AI and having this engaging conversation. And so we kind of built a product in that space, but then we're just like, okay, this is not super differentiated, or like how are we going to like really build a great product here. So then that evolved into building a product that we called Untangle. And that was really, you would talk and then you would create you couldn't be dictating what you want to, like a piece of like writing, but it wasn't just like writing down what you said verbatim. It would start and have a conversation with you. And then from that, it would tease out kind of like the big points. And then there'd be like another step in the process where the AI would like understand what was like said in the conversation. And then it would take that, write it down. That was kind of interesting, that product. But then we're like, it's still probably not enough there. And then we're like, okay, well, what if you had like a full-fledged service that was just for like writing newsletters? And that's how we eventually got to Flock. But then even then we're just like, oh, okay, this is kind of lame.
Well, the interesting thing is you've had a lot of experience in building and innovating when it comes to the digital communication space. What we like to do in every episode, as always, folks, is get AI's take on the topic and the space that we're talking about today. So, Lana, should we get into what AI's take is?
Yes.
Okay.
According to Perplexity, AI has dramatically transformed digital communication by enhancing efficiency and personalization. It automates routine tasks, allowing professionals to focus on strategic initiatives, while analyzing user data to deliver tailored messaging. Tools like chatbots facilitate faster interactions, improving customer engagement. However, there are challenges, including potential negative perceptions of AI-generated responses and ethical concerns around copyright and data privacy. Despite these advancements, the human touch remains essential for building relationships and conveying nuanced messages. Overall, while AI offers significant benefits in digital communication, careful consideration of its implications is necessary for effective integration.
So, Jacob, Within all of that AI had to say about digital communication and AI within digital communication, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot there. But one of the things that really jumped out at me, which is something that I really agree with now, especially over the last few months building stuff in this space, is that, people really are very sensitive to AI generated content, especially if you start suggesting that it is your writing or your name is behind it. And then the AI is the one that is sort of actually doing the writing and the thinking. And then if it starts using words or speaking or writing in a tone that is not how you would sound, that's very off-putting to the author. And it's actually, I think, a little less off-putting to the person who's reading it if they don't know exactly how that person, typically writes or speaks. But if they do know, then it's like, this is just weird. And it's almost like this uncanny valley type of experience. And I don't know if there's a great solution to that. I don't know if the new AI models will solve for that, but I do know that is a big thing that I'm conscious of when building product. How is it going to make the author be perceived? Are they going to be okay with that? And working through all those little details. And I think that's a really big thing that everyone's wrestling with in the space right now.
I gotta say, here at the AI Chicks, Aisha and I actually have talked about this a lot, about how digital communication has really changed how we communicate with each other, how we communicate with our devices. I mean, speech to text. I mean, pretty much at any point in time, if you look over to Aisha, she'll be on her phone, talking out what she's trying to say to someone in a text. And so we always talk about that idea of how we communicate changes, even how we text, right? TTYL, talk to you later. We have now come up with where the entire society know what they're talking about when they say certain acronyms and how they talk. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking about these different ways is, are we going to get to a point where we get to create, or the apps that are available allows us to create key phrases where I just say this phrase while I'm talking and it knows what 3 paragraphs I want added into my email or my correspondence with someone.
So it's like having your own keywords of templates. You can just say insert letter and you've already pre-programmed it and it inserts exactly what you want in, so you don't actually have to speak everything out.
Yeah. But then the other side of that, to your point, is about the nuances of loss of language, loss of personal touch. On one hand, I think that the technology is progressing so fast, it's able to pick up on your nuances with personal assistance and things like that, is that it's going to be able to capture your voice. Or is it? Will it ever? I'm someone who is very outgoing and extroverted, and that's sort of my personality when you're speaking to me. But when I write in very professional tone because I'm a business broker. So sometimes I don't necessarily think that my voice is being captured 100% in how I write. But if there was a tool that was listening to how I speak, would they be able to translate me better in Word, almost like having a ghostwriter? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So with us, making me think of is just the other day, I was reading about, have you guys seen the Notebook LM stuff? So it's really interesting. It's a project by Google. It's basically just, you can dump in a whole bunch of files and then you'll be able to, make use of those files. But then one of the features they just added is they'll take that information and then turn it into a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's, having this moment where it's really going viral. It's super cool. And then I was just reading about how they're doing it. And a part of the process is when they're creating these podcasts is they're sort of adding in, I forgot the exact phrase they used, but effectively these imperfections in the language to make it so that the podcast did sound more human in the output. And you do listen to it and I'm like, oh wow, this does sound really, really, good. But the issue is if you start listening to a bunch of them, the imperfections are all the same across all of them.
Yeah. It's not being personalized. Yeah.
So then you very quickly start to be like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And so that's my experience with the ghostwriting stuff as well, is everyone has their own style. What makes, each person's communication style unique. And that's, I think, the thing that I think AI really needs to figure out is what is that unique, element, whether it's writing, whether it's in the, in the spoken version, in a podcast. Every person, I speak, in my own way, and you guys do in your own way, and everyone has that. And I think AI needs to figure out how to properly capture that. And as someone that builds technology products, I've got no idea how you might actually do that. So
some people don't want AI to be able to do that. Exactly. Well, it's interesting because Lana gave a little tidbit of my dynamics with communicating with my devices, where I actually don't even care to text out a text. I prefer to speak a text. And so when I started to notice that change, these new features are actually having a behavioral preference change on me as a human. And so My thing that AI didn't touch on is the behavioral changes that are going to happen with people just on a human to human standpoint and on a daily standpoint, and really curious to see how these features, as they continue to advance, change our behavioral preferences. Have you seen any other sort of behavioral preferences with humans after really evolving and interfacing with these AI advancements?
Well, I actually think that's like the hardest thing when building a consumer product is everyone has their existing behaviors. And if you're coming in trying to change a behavior, that's super hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. Every time I meet an investor that's, investing in these new companies in the space, or any other people that are building consumer products in the space, I'm still sort of fascinated where, ChatGPT was launched November 2022 or whatever it was. And, since then, there still really hasn't been like another massive consumer hit. Like maybe it's Perplexity, but even then on the scale of like regular consumer products, it's like not anything, crazy. And then you have a thing like Notebook LM right now, but like that's not going to be it for me. Like I don't think so. I think it's just having a little viral moment, and I don't think it'll be anything lasting. So I really do think right now today, the only new product that's like actually gained adoption at a large scale has been products like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And then you have like the Claudes of the world and the Geminis of the world.
Yeah.
It's directly interfacing through effectively chat with the language model.
Yeah.
That's the only like new category that's been created that's also kind of like changing out people's behavior. Everyone has their own different ways to use it. I use them all the time for like brainstorming, or just like, there's a good name for this new product, or like, all this kind of stuff. But I think that's sort of like the only like new behavior change that we've seen with AI. And I don't know if that's exactly your question, but that's where my head sort of went to.
I'm really interested to see how this will have an impact on the next generation, where this is their first person experience with it. They don't have anything else to compare it to. So then where do we go from there?
A question for you guys.
Yeah.
I just noticed the other day, Gmail's being much more aggressive about the autocomplete
suggestions.
stuff.
Yeah.
And they're not just like little like one sentence phrases now.
Yes.
They're just like full on 3 paragraphs. And it's just like, whoa. I'm very curious to see if like that will start gaining adoption, how like people on the other side will feel, but like they're in a very good position where they have all of your emails and like they can properly capture your tone.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because I think we've even joked about this. If certain sectors of communication, if we get so used to having those suggestions and everything automated and personalized with spelling, grammar, responses, then does that impact or affect humans' capabilities with spelling and grammar, right? So it's
like I can't spell. And it's just like I grew up with like, it's like.
That's the other interesting thing too. If you get into the habit of using those AI features via email more and more, where now it's just not doing autocorrection, spelling just on a short scale, but really writing out your whole entire email, then do you sort of lose that skill set?
Well, I don't know. The school system probably won't let you, at least while you're in school. It's kind of like how we talked about self-driving cars.
Yeah.
And you made the comment, does that mean nobody needs to get their driver's license? I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
There might be a point where we won't need to. Yeah, but it's super interesting to see in the digital communication space how these advancements will really impact human behavioral preferences and patterns moving forward. So,
should we play a game with Jacob?
Yes. I think we need to get into this game.
Okay.
Why are there ridges on Reese's peanut butter cups? Probably so they never slip from her hands. Could you imagine? I'd lose it. Luckily, Reese's thought about that. Wonder what else they think about. Probably chocolate and peanut butter.
Jacob, so here at the AI Chicks, we have a game. It's called the nickname game.
Okay.
And basically, that's how we induct you into the AI squad. Are you ready?
Sure.
Well, first off, do you have a nickname?
No.
You don't have any childhood nickname?
No, Jacob's a tough one. Some people will try to force Jake on me, but I'm pretty stern. Like, what's
How about
next?
like App King? We like to infuse a little information. You are producing a lot of apps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes you king, but I'm definitely
Okay, fair enough.
Prince of apps.
Prince of apps.
Sure.
There's room for you to grow.
Yeah, it's like you either start out with simple nicknames like JC, which is your initials.
Yeah, exactly.
That one's worked before. I have heard JC before.
Okay, so he's nodded his head on 2.
Yeah.
Prince of apps and JC.
Okay,
so which one do you want to go with?
I'll go with JC.
Oh, so he wants to keep it real. He's an original.
Yeah.
Classy,
all right.
just his initials. JC
All right.
it is.
And we've never given anyone just their initials as a nickname.
No.
You're the first. All right, so JC coming in
Welcome
clutch.
to the AI squad,
Yes.
JC.
Okay, this is great.
Now we're going to switch gears. You have mentioned being a founder, building all these AI apps, startups. What are some of the key lessons that you've learned in this process that you could share with the audience?
What I do is I fail quickly and I move on to the next idea as fast as I possibly can. And, every day I'm like, is that a strength or is that a weakness? Should I be grinding some of these out longer and being like, no, there's something here. We just got to work a little harder and just like keep at it and iterate a little bit more. Or like, should we go to a whole different thing? That's a constant challenge with, my process. What I just try to tell myself is just don't go on Twitter too much and like, don't rely on other people's opinions or other people's thinking, and just try to think for yourself and, understand what's actually happening with the technology and what's actually happening with the different industries that you might want to like build your products in, and think for yourself. Just like really, really basic stuff. But it's very easy to get caught up in the noise and, this is what investors will want, or like, this is the hot, cool thing of the moment. And, I've fallen victim to that stuff before myself. But I think that's like the thing that you have to try to avoid is just, think for yourself and, just do whatever you think is right. Just keep, working hard.
I really appreciate what you just said about failing fast. I think a lot of people are often afraid of failure.
Scared to fail.
Yeah, they're scared to fail. And the fact that you said it so confidently and nonchalant, really, I commend you for that, because if you have an idea, just try it and see what you get. Not being so afraid of failure and understanding that you could end up building something great off of an idea that started as one thing, but then transformed into another.
And just a sidebar, how do you look at failure? Because I think that's probably what people are wanting to know. What is your premise and your position on that concept of failure?
When it comes to the actual like day-to-day of when we decide to keep working on a product or to move on to some other thing, like that's the hardest thing. Like failing, you just gotta like say like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do something else. And it's really not that hard, especially if you didn't put too much of your personal identity in the product. This is my new thing, and you tell the whole world. And if you become really personally attached to it, I think it can become a little bit more challenging. But that's sort of my personal brand, is I've always been trying new stuff. So I think it's a little easier maybe. The thing I'm self-conscious of is like, am I doing it too much? Am I digging in enough and like working, harder on an idea? I'm like, no, this is a good insight. Like if we just, pivot a little bit or just like shift a tiny bit, we're going to find something good here. And like, I don't think there's a right answer, but like that's the challenge. It's like knowing whether or not it's the right thing to fail quickly and move on, or to keep working, because you're going to find counterexamples of both. Like, oh, this person, they pivoted completely to some other thing that worked great for them. And then some other example, like they kept at it for like 7 years and then they finally like it worked. Kind of goes back to what I was just saying earlier. Think for yourself and like what makes sense for the situation, and trust yourself after you make a decision. That part's really hard. It's like, it's not easy.
And within the startup space, because running a startup is not easy just on itself. Even when it's successful, it's still hard. So what are you seeing currently in the marketplace, like the pros and the cons of, the AI startup world?
I think right now, especially on places like Twitter, there's just sort of a shift towards, these very aggressively monetized apps that you can build very quickly. Most of the time they use some, kind of AI in some capacity. I have my issues with those sort of apps where I generally don't think that they're, aligned with creating long-term value for the user. And they're, putting these paywalls up where you have to subscribe for, $5.99 and it's like reoccurring every week. And a person who makes the app, they're making, $400,000 or $500,000 a month. And it's like great for them, but it's like, very close to a scam. That's not what I want to do. But I get it. Like if you need money or if you're trying to like break into the industry, but like for me, I sold my last company to Snapchat. I was able to, when I left, raise money. So for me, I sort of view it like I don't have to do that sort of stuff. Like we already have the cash from the investors, and now we can like try to do the really, really big idea. Like, okay, let's not get sucked into that. Let's just, try to figure out what's going to be the multi-billion-dollar company potentially. And like, how do we focus on that kind of stuff? But the other stuff can be seductive because, failing all the time, like it's not fun. And then it's just like, well, you see this other person over here, like they're doing well. Like they got users, they're making money. Like
you're building these AI tools and apps, being conscious, ethical, wanting to actually add value to the consumer and the user.
Yeah, because we always talk about how once AI really hit the scene, every company had AI. All of a sudden, they have it in like one little app, and now they want to talk about that they're an AI-focused company. And so I appreciate that perspective.
Just creating, value for your user or your customer. There's other ways you can build products that don't really necessarily align with that.
And on that note, I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on how do we feel AI is pivotal in transforming and improving and advancing the digital communication space?
Well, I don't think it really has yet. That's the interesting thing. There's stuff like the like better autocomplete and the voice to text and like, but like that's kind of been around for a while and it's like nothing really that new. That's all like incremental, the pace of
The growth,
improvement over time. I think that's like the really interesting thing. Whoever figures that out, you're probably gonna, make a multi-billion-dollar company is gonna be
JC's working on figuring that out.
I mean, that is what we're trying to do. But when you look around, no one's really done it yet. What are the interesting new AI startups that are, really doing cool stuff? I don't think we've seen it yet.
What about the new AI devices? Because that's also changing the way we communicate. When you're looking at Meta glasses or the Rabbit One that had a pop of flare and kind of went away. But there are these new devices that I feel are changing the way that we are communicating because we're so used to the laptop, the desktop, and the phone. Now we're communicating through our glasses. Now we're communicating through a pen. You're in the world way more than we are. So for you, those things may not be that impressive, but I feel that for the public consumer, that's changing a lot of how they are going to view communication.
But I think also to what I think Jacob's point was, it's not there yet. It's not like everyone is walking around with tech-enabled sunglasses. When we get to a place where everyone has tech-enabled sunglasses, that's a different thing.
Impacting society on a more of a mass level.
Yeah, because if you think about it, there was a point where we did not all walk around with cell phones. There was pre-cell phone, and now we all have this tech. So I think that it's starting. And we're starting to see kind of ideas, but what's going to be the next big
We're
thing?
definitely not there yet.
We're not there yet.
But I feel that there's those incremental growths.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it's going to have a lot more change is actually in changing the devices that we're using to communicate.
I actually wanted to ask Jacob also about fast apps, like these monetizing apps. Everyone's just trying to get to the consumer as quick as possible, whether the product's good or not, whatever. But that's a little bit like this sort of clickbait culture that we've created. You can't hold anyone's attention for more than 20 seconds and how that's impacting our digital communication style. Do you feel like there is sort of a loss of nuance in how we're communicating because of it? We either have to get straight to the point really quick or be a bit more catchy or flashy to garner attention.
So my hunch of where I think it's really going is I think the human to human communication that is talking to people that you actually know and you care about, that's not going to be replaced. Like that's just like regular stuff that's here to stay. But I'm actually very skeptical of the glasses and all that kind of stuff. We could all go on like the Meta website and buy these glasses right now and have them and like do a lot of this stuff. But like we don't have them.
Well, actually I have them because my bestie bought them for me for my birthday.
Yeah, but she's not using it on a regular basis.
Yeah, maybe there's going to be a breakthrough. I don't think that that's going to be as big of a thing. And I think it's really people like Mark Zuckerberg being more obsessed about breaking free from Apple. They want their own operating system. And I think that's actually where a lot of it's coming from. And I don't know how much consumers will actually want to be doing that kind of stuff. But I do think that the meta theme that they're trying to like get at is generally correct. It's effectively people want to spend less time on their devices. But like, I think the solution's weird where it's just like, oh, we'll just put a device on your head. It's just like,
you want less time on your devices, so
Yeah.
I created a new device.
That you wear all the time.
So it doesn't totally add up to me. I'm like, oh, okay. I actually think it will be more like invisible technology, like the agent to agent communication or just like agents talking to each other, where you have an AI agent that's fully aware of you and kind of what you want. I think that's probably more like how this stuff plays out. I think we're going to get to that point. And whoever can crack that code of like how you figure out, how everyone has an agent, how it safely manages your data, how it safely shares your data to other people's AI agents, those are all the things that need to be figured out. But once they do, like I do think they're going to be like massively valuable. And my hunch is that it probably won't do as much stuff like YouTube talking to each other because you guys can just text. You don't probably need that as much. But when it's people that you know less or you don't know at all, or it's your doctor's office or it's some other like industry, that's where I think it'll be more valuable. It'll handle all the things.
Make your reservation for the restaurant, book your flight, make your doctor's appointment, things like that.
I think so. The company that figures that out, I think is going to be very, very, very large. To me, I think that's a part of the same theme as the glasses stuff, but it's just a different solution. You just tell your AI to do it and it saves you an hour. That's an hour less that you're spending on your device and an hour more you have to do whatever the hell you want to do.
Well, I think the other thing with the glasses is the translation services, being able to communicate with someone who speaks a different language that you don't speak. So it allows people to really communicate with people that they might not normally communicate with. On one hand, we have that on our phones too.
Yeah.
There's apps that do that. What I do appreciate about that is the fact that we are a global economy and we are only becoming more and more interconnected. But to your point, is that necessarily going to be the direction, or will my AI agent just speak in different languages on my behalf?
It's sort of like when you go to Paris or whatever, you see people on segways like all around, these Segway tours.
Yeah.
No regular person would go around LA where you know people. Oh, I was on my Segway going down Wilshire. Like, no one's doing that. But when you're in a different place, maybe like that will be a use case where you put on these like maybe dorky glasses and like, oh, I can just translate.
It becomes something that is part of that experience or certain sectors.
Yeah, but day to day here, like we don't need that use case of translation. It's not like super frequent. And I still think it will be this weird social dynamic.
Everyone understanding that I clearly don't know your language, you don't know mine. So bear with me while I hear what you just said.
Yeah.
A lot of what we're talking about is features and AI capabilities that already exist in apps or in some form, but it's changing the user experience. And so whether it goes from your phone to an app to glasses to whatever device it is, at the core, it's still really the same AI capabilities and programming, but what's the real differentiator factor is the user experience versus just the technology advancing itself. One other thing that I wanted to touch on as we're talking about user experience is, how do you feel we should be tapping into, in the tech space, the authenticity, embedding AI into, these communication devices?
I mean, I think it's a huge thing. Right now, that is the biggest barrier to it being used on a more frequent basis. That stuff's like, I think, largely being used for like ads, where it almost doesn't matter if it's AI generated. But the second your real name and identity is attached to it, then you care very deeply what it sounds like and how that works. And I don't think anyone's figured that out yet, of like how to do that properly. So I don't think it's like really gained adoption yet.
I think the key though with AI is always data. If I wanted to create a AI agent or avatar or whatever that sounded like me, wrote like me, talked like me, it would have to have a lot of data, a lot of videos that I've done, a lot of writing pieces that I've done to see the trends and the imperfections or all the things that make Lana uniquely Lana. And I don't know that we're there yet. A lot of the data is probably very vast.
Yeah, that's why the Gmail example is very interesting, because I've had my Gmail account for like 15 years and like they've got a lot of data on me. But for a startup, that's really, really hard. And like that's constantly the challenge. Is like, I'm always thinking about like what's our wedge in to like gain that little bit of data. And the first time someone downloads my app, it's still going to be valuable and useful to them despite not having any data on that user. But then also, like over time, how do we make it even more valuable? Because that not only makes a better user experience, that is also probably where your like defensibility will come from long term.
Well, I want to make sure that we talk about the future of AI and communication. It could be some of the things you're hoping to build and work on, but even outside of that, where do you see just AI going in the future for all of society, globally, all the things?
Well, I'm very excited about robotics. I think that's going to be like really, really, really interesting. Like the AI is sort of just going to become the brain to the robots. And then the stuff that they're going to be able to do, I think is going to be fascinating and really, really, really interesting. I don't know if you guys have the new iPhone, but I'm just not getting it for the first time ever. I'm just like, this is like not that interesting.
With the Apple Intelligence?
Yeah, I was just like, I don't care. And the reason I mention that is because
this episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
As if I was Apple, if I'm Tim Cook, and I'm not spending like every waking hour like thinking about how Apple's going to be making robots. Like Apple's screwed if they're not making robots right now, in my opinion. They have the perfect brand for it. They have all this information.
And they're in the hardware space.
Yeah,
too.
They can make 100 million of these things.
Yeah.
Like that's not a trivial task. I think the robot stuff is really interesting. And
So you think we'll all have robots?
Yeah, I'd love to have an Apple robot. Like that would be so cool.
We have talked about like Isaac has come out, that humanoid that, can do all these tasks for you. And
but the thing is like they're scary. And but they are. I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and she's like, "It would have to sleep outside." Like, and I get it.
Yeah, because if you're walking down like your hall at night in your home, you don't want like your robot to just scare you.
It does have a little bit of the essence of Terminator.
Yeah. Do you want it to be like smaller and more petite?
Not one that can take over you and that's taller than you?
Yeah.
So my hunch is they're all building them to be like 6 foot tall, which I don't quite get. Like I get the whole world's like designed for, people that are, about that height. But like, I don't understand why they don't do it like a
Like a nice 5'5" robot.
yeah, like a 5-foot robot, like a 12-year-old boy, like that sort of like,
It sounds more like your assistant.
yeah, I think that would be like more comforting to most people, and it should be able to navigate everything in the world. Like you can get like cups and like reach things.
Yeah. And
Maybe it has a really long arm.
I'm all about the robots. That would change consumer behavior.
Oh yeah.
Oh, hands down.
It's all kind of like laddering up to that.
Yeah.
And I think the immediate next really big thing is going to be the agent-to-agent communication, or just like agents in general. Everyone gets agents first, and then you can do more agent-to-agent stuff. I think that stuff will happen pretty quick.
Do you think it's going to come from a new startup company, or do you think it's going to come from an existing company like a Microsoft, like a Google, that already has a lot of user bases that,
Yeah.
Even if it's a new company, they'll just acquire it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will. I think it depends how fast they grow, and like that's sort of like the big like holy grail. Like whoever cracks that is like probably not going to be a $1 billion company. It's going to be like
trillion,
like really,
more.
really, really big.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the incumbents have that much of an advantage in this space. It's still like TBD how it's like exactly going to play out. But like, I think there could be an opportunity for a startup to like, have a decent wedge in this space and kind of make something that works. Like what company is best positioned to make these agents right now and like dominate and just do this? I don't know if there is a super obvious one. Like maybe it's OpenAI.
But I do love your idea of Apple getting into robotics because at its core, it is a hardware company. And I think what we're seeing right now is companies that started out as software or hardware, they're now all just crossing over.
Yeah.
Some software companies are now like, we're making chips. Everyone right now is getting some sort of division or sector of their company.
Foot in the door of whatever they're not
all
in.
the areas of AI. Yeah.
In general, like that's why I think the big companies are going to have a challenge is because they don't do too much stuff that's like very in your face about them knowing how much they know about you.
Right. So true. They're just trying to downplay how much they know about you.
But the best version of this product would be one that intimately knows you. A great assistant knows every detail about you. If Apple were to just do this tomorrow, it'd be like, whoa, like I thought you guys didn't, do all this stuff, your privacy set. So I think there's a lot of forces that are making it very challenging for like the incumbents to full on like go after this.
Or they have to opt in. You're Apple.
Yeah.
We're just making this up. We have your iPhone, you got all your apps, you have all the things that you like. Hey, Apple's launching their new AI agent. It's your agent, but you have to give it permission to
access all your
files and data.
I think it really just comes down to individual preferences and comfortability levels and what they do for their career, what their lifestyle is like, things like that. There might be some people that really want their personal assistant, their AI agent to be all involved with their family life. And others are like, I don't want it to know anything about my kids. So I think that there might be this opting in, opt out feature until the mass society is comfortable enough where then everyone's fully communicating agent to agent.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that it could be OpenAI. It could be one of the big players. Or it could be a new player.
Yeah, or it could be JC.
Yeah, JC.
I love that.
And then you'll have to come back.
Yeah, and talk about your $1 trillion company.
Yeah, exactly.
We're manifesting it for you right now.
JC, thank you so much for joining us here at the AI Chicks. This was a great conversation. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
And you guys, hope that you enjoyed this conversation with JC Jacob Catalano and continue to check out the rest of our episodes. Follow us on social. And what else, Lana?
And don't forget to grab the merch.
That's right, you guys. All right, take care. Bye.
Listen to the AI Chicks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Video episodes are available on Patreon. And check out our socials at the AI Chicks.